All right, so if you guys are just joining us right now, as you can see, we've been going through this series called Hot Topics. And what we've been kind of seeing along the road is we were designing this message originally because we were going, okay, we want students to talk about real things that they're experiencing in the places that they're experiencing it. And so we've gone through identity, we've gone through depression, we've gone through anxiety, we've gone through living in a digital world, and tonight we're going to be taking the next step in the journey of this topic. And I want to start off with this phrase, okay? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, and how does it finish? Will never hurt me. I'm going to start off with saying this. That is the worst phrase that you can say, and it is not true at all. And so what I want us to start off tonight with is you all receive that little slip of paper, right? Okay, so you all have two slips. First, we're going to do it this way. I want you to look at the person left of you. If you're on the end where you don't have anybody, then look at the person on the other end of your row, and that's the person that I'm talking for you. But what I want you to do, whether you know the person or not, is I want you to write one encouraging phrase to them. Okay, listen, like make it serious, make it real and sincere. Like even if you don't know them, but maybe you see, hey, I like their shoes or something like that. I want you to write an encouraging phrase to them. If you know them more personally, then maybe you can write a more personal note. But I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write that note and hand it to the person on your left. Okay? Now do this silently. Do this all silently. Once you've written it, you can be able to hand it to the person to your left. Or if you're on the end, it can just get handed over to the person. Okay. If you've already written it, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. Okay, make sure these are serious phrases. Okay, now here's what I want you to do with your second paper. Look at the person to the right of you. If you're on the end again, look at the person on the other end. And I want you to write, for the next 30 seconds, another encouraging phrase to that person. Okay? 30 seconds, write that encouragement. Okay, about 10 seconds left. All right. So here's why I wanted us to do that. Because tonight's hot topic, I titled it Breaking Bones because I'm saying the phrase of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The reality is, and the major truth that I want you guys to get away from tonight is this. Your words matter. Let me say that again if you guys are still handing some notes around, but your words actually matter. And I did this little exercise because, and it's funny in the moment because it's kind of like, okay, like I'm saying something really quick to someone. But the reality is if you actually took the time and the attention to putting some value into what you just wrote, it still means something even though it was a quick gesture. Why? Because your words matter. The things you say matter. So tonight we're going to be looking at 3 different questions on this idea of words, okay? And the first question that we're going to jump into is, where do words actually come from? Okay, so if words matter, then what is the starting point for those words? And so I want to jump in first to Luke chapter 6, verses 43 through 45. And Jesus is talking right here, and he says this, okay? He says, a good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. A tree is identified by its fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are not picked from bramble bushes. A good person produces good things from a treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from a treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what's in your heart. See, here Jesus is talking to these people, and he shows us the starting point from where words and actions spring forth. And what he opens up for us here is a couple different analogies. So he starts off with showing us the fact that figs don't actually come from thorn bushes. Okay, if you ever had a fig, they don't actually grow on thorn bushes at all. They're actually grown on fig trees. Okay? In the same way, Jesus also says grapes, guess what? They don't come from bramble bushes. Why? Because Jesus understands that these two types of things, figs come from fig trees. So when you go to a fig tree, you better expect what? Figs. If you go to a grapevine, you're not going to walk up to it and all of a sudden go, oh, I wasn't expecting that to be something different than grapes. No, you're going to walk up to it and you're going, oh, that's grapes. See, in the same way, what Jesus is starting to show for us is the beginning of what words and actions start. So for me, okay, I loved, when I grew up, I actually my parents had a garden, but I got a section of the garden where I got to grow pumpkins, okay? And when I was growing those pumpkins, you know what? If I took the months and months of planting those things, and then all of a sudden it was zucchini in the fall, I would be pretty upset and surprised, because I'd be like, okay, I thought I planted pumpkins, but they're zucchinis, okay? That doesn't happen when it's this situation that Jesus is talking about. He's saying, here's the thing. A good person is going to produce something. He said a good person, which actually, I'm going to take that further. It's not just like they do good things. It's a person who's living for God. A good person produces good things. Why? From a good heart. That there's a cycle of how things happen. A good person doesn't just happen to be a good person because all of a sudden they woke up one day and they're like, oh, I want to be a good person. No, it's things that are taking place in their heart that start to show on the outside. In the same way, Jesus then goes on and he says, just like you wouldn't go to the figs or the grapes and expect something else, in the same way, an evil person is going to produce something as well. They're going to produce evil. From where? An evil heart. See, the most important truth that Jesus shows right here is that our words come from our heart. Why is that important? See, the thoughts that we think start to cause the words that we say. So if we rewind from the things that we're saying and we go into the heart of the matter, the reality is what we think on, what we put into our mind starts to show outside of us. That the content that we start to put into our lives actually is going to be the content that you bring out of your life. So if you start to look like certain things, you're going to end, or if you start to put those things into your life, you're eventually going to look like those things on the outside. So here's a question that I want to challenge you guys with tonight. Words come from thoughts and actions that we start to put into our lives. What are the things that you think about? If you start to think through, maybe even this last week, just rewind through your last week. What is the content that you put into your life? And it can be anything down to the songs that you listen to. So think through that. What are you listening to? What kind of content is it giving you? Think through the movies that you watch. What is the content that those movies are putting into your life? Think about the friends that you surround yourself with. What are they putting into your life? Those are just important questions for us to ask, because if that is true, that we actually start to think about things and then that becomes who we are, it's important that we understand what we're putting into our lives. What kind of things do you fill your mind with? But then secondly, and this is the next question, why are words powerful? Why are they powerful? Well, I want to look at actually 3 different passages from this. And the first one is Proverbs 11:9. And it says this: "With their words, the godless destroy their friends, but knowledge will rescue the righteous." See, and then jumping just like not far past that, in Proverbs 16, verse 24, it says this: "Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body." Okay? Proverbs 18, verse 4 says this: "Wise words are like deep waters. Wisdom flows from the wise like a bubbling brook." Like, I love everything that's going on here, the different types of thoughts that this is showing here. But why is the phrase, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hear or hurt me," wrong? Because of these kind of things. By what it's showing here, because words can do this. They can either make someone's world or they can completely destroy someone's world. Maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you've seen somebody else experience that. But words are powerful, and they can be used to either build up or to tear down. And so Proverbs 11:9, here we see the comparison of 2 different types of people. Again, it's the godless people who they look at their lives and they see words and they go, words don't really matter. They don't hurt anybody. I can say whatever I want to say, and it doesn't matter. But then in the process of them saying that and thinking that, they destroy their friends. And their friends feel hurt by the things that they say. But then the other side of it is the righteous person. See, the righteous person uses knowledge, and it says that it saves them from being destructive towards their friends. How many of you know what wisdom and knowledge are? Do you know the difference what they are? Here, I was just asking a student this last week. I was like, okay, what is knowledge and what is wisdom? Here's it. Knowledge, you can think about and read about and learn about something and completely understand what's going on in that topic. You'd be knowledgeable in that area. But then wisdom takes it one step further. Wisdom can understand what's going on, but then if there's an action, like, hey, go do this now, you've learned it, go do it, wisdom says, okay, I'm going to actually take the step of going and doing what I've heard. So somebody could be really knowledgeable but never actually apply anything that they've learned to their lives, and they would not be wise. But a wise person can learn a lot of things and then apply it to their lives, and they are wise. So here, the righteous person uses knowledge that they're learning, and it saves them from their destructive actions towards their friends. So as you think about your life, which group of people do you place yourself in? Would you place yourself in the godless people who think words don't matter, that you can just say whatever you want? Or would you put yourself in the righteous person who is able to look at their life and say, I want my words to matter and to count? See, Proverbs 16:24, this is the one where it talks about honey, that kind words are like honey. Why is that significant? Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of a science lesson on honey, okay? Honey is sweet. Wow. Yeah, I know you all were like thinking, really? Is that really? But not only is honey sweet, honey actually has a lot of other important things about it. Honey is, one, the sugar in honey is known for being a lot better than a lot of other types of sugars that we put into our foods. So it's got a lot of better sugar content in it. Honey also contains what we would call antioxidants. You know, we always get excited about those when they're in our drinks or something. We're like, oh, we're so healthy because we have antioxidants in it. But then not only does it have that, but honey also contains antibacterial and antifungal properties in it. So maybe you've heard your parents say honey doesn't go bad, that actually honey can not really have an expiration date. That's why, because honey can be able to kill a lot of the different types of bacterias and funguses that would normally get into our other foods. So honey has all these different properties, but then also they're starting to research and look into honey, and there may be, it's not officially, but might be able to lower blood pressure, actually, if you have honey. So all of these different things of why honey is important. Now, when we then jump into Proverbs, the writer probably at that time didn't know about all these things, but they understood a couple things about it. They knew that honey was sweet and it was better for you than other things that you could eat. And in the same way, I believe that what this writer is trying to show us is that our words, when used wisely, can actually be a source of healing to people's lives. That actually you can use your words to completely transform somebody. In the same way, our words can also be a source that tears people down. Proverbs 18, verse 4, instead of the idea of honey, then it uses this idea of deep waters. Okay, so this deep waters, it's referring to a person that has wisdom. Again, they know knowledge, but they know how to apply it to their lives. They have all this wisdom inside of them. And this wisdom comes from listening to wise counsel. So they're putting people into their lives that are going to make them better. And then they follow the Holy Spirit's prompting. And see, while deep waters, I don't know if you're familiar with deep waters. If we were to look at Lake Michigan, we would say the deep waters are not the water on top. That's if you went way down. It's the waters that barely move on the bottom of the lake. So deep waters don't move very much. But then the proverb actually at the very end of chapter 18, verse 4, then moves onto a brook. Is the brook still? No, a brook is moving constantly. It's moving through, and it's bringing fresh water. And see, a wise person is not only able to have all this wisdom, but then they have it just bubbling out of their lives. Have you ever been around a person where you're like, you know what? I kind of want to hang out with that person more because they make me smarter in the process of being around them. Well, they may have a lot of wise things to say because they've learned how to understand what they're supposed to do and then actually do what they're called to do. So you have the power to input life into people around you. You have the power to be able to be honey. You have the power to be able to pour out wisdom into other people's lives. And you also have the power to be able to destroy people around you. You have both. You have the options. And what I hope that I can show you and to call you guys to tonight is to choose to be the person who's a bubbling brook. To be the person that wisdom just comes out of you. People want to be around you because you've chosen to use your words wisely, to see that your words matter. You know, for me, I'm learning this, and I've learned it the hard way too. I was in cross country, okay, and I was in my senior year. We were right at the moment where we were going to go off to our regionals, and if we qualified, we were going to state. And it was a stressful moment out on this run where I was like, I am either going to make it or we are not going to make it. And our team needs to be ready to go. And one of the guys on the team in that moment was kind of horsing around, almost got one of the other guys hurt. And I remember I chose my words unwisely. And I exploded at him in that moment and was really frustrated. And we kind of went at it after each other. And I walked away from that situation, and later on I was like, man, I wasn't right. And so I went back to him and I apologized to him about it. But guess what? 6 years later, here in this youth group, there was somebody that came up to me and said, like, just in the passing, was like, oh yeah, I remember that one time that you exploded at that one guy, like, on your team, like, out while you guys were on a run. He wasn't on my team. He's one of, like, your guys' age. He was just walking out on the street and heard all that happened between the two of us out there. And he remembered that for 6 years. Guys, words have power. People remember good things that are said, and they also remember bad things that are said. And I heard that in that moment, and I was like, wow, words have power. And in that moment, it wasn't a great thing. It was a learning moment for me of saying, I really want to use my words wisely because people remember them. If you look back at this last week, what were the words that you said to others? Were they wise? Were they sweet like honey? Were you the deep waters? Were you the bubbling brook? How would people categorize you after looking at you this week? Third question tonight. How should I use my words? I know where they come from. I know that they're powerful, but then how do I actually use them? See, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, it says it like this. It says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything that you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. See, it's one verse, but it's got so much in it. First off, here the writer is saying, don't use foul language. Just don't. Don't use foul language. Don't use abusive language or harsh language. Things that would hurt others around you. That's the starting point, is to start cutting things out of your life. But then to rather, when you cut those kind of things out of your life, to add something into it. And it is to be good, to be helpful. Use words that build others up. See, if you hit situations where you feel like you can't be good and helpful, I'll share a secret with you. Don't say anything. I'm serious. Sometimes you can be so wise by not saying anything. That in a situation, especially in moments where you're angry and you're riled up, it's better to just walk away, to not say anything, and to hold your tongue. There's wisdom in learning to hold your tongue. And harsh words, honestly, can create damage quickly. It can destroy a person very fast, but it can take years to rebuild that relationship afterwards. Or in the situation for me, I could say something to another person and somebody else hears it and still remembers it 6 years into the future. Our words can be able to do incredible things and also horrible things. You know, I was, this, again, like jumping for me because I'm so involved in sports. Like, I was coaching at the very beginning of this season for cross country, and I was hanging out with a couple of other coaches, and one of them laughed at me and said, like, you'll never hear Coach Brad say, like, language at all. And we all kind of, like, laughed about it, and then I kind of, like, said it back to him. I was like, yeah, and you probably never will. Like, it's just a thing. Like, you're not going to hear me, like, say language. And I, like, laughed about that in the situation, but then I was like, you know, the reality is, like, for me, that's just a choice that I've made. I'm like, I read these kind of passages where it says, don't use foul language, don't use abusive language. And I don't do it perfect all the time, but there's choices that I've made where I've said, I don't want to do that. And now I've built the reputation where other coaches have noticed it. And that's the desire I have for you guys, is that each one of you would be known for being people that love other people. That you are known for being people that choose your words wisely, so that you're always choosing to build up others and not tear them down. So then now what? How do you actually put this into practice? I want to start off with some just different questions. What kind of things are you filling your mind with? Again, that's the starting point. Because if you start to look at your life and you see things you don't want, you've got to rewind and say, okay, where's the starting point for that? So what are you filling into your mind? But then secondly, are there people that you need to apologize to for the words that you've said? Maybe there are. I know there's been moments where I've had to look back at the things that I've said and I had to apologize. And so maybe you're looking at your life tonight and you're saying, you know what, I don't use my words very wisely, and there are people that I've probably hurt, and you can name them. Then I would say tonight, text them, call them. If you're going to see them in school tomorrow, go talk to them. Be intentional about starting to repair those relationships. And then thirdly, what is one step toward you becoming wiser in the things that you say? What's one step? If you were to look at this next week and you said, hey, this is the one way that I'm going to change the way that I start talking. Maybe it's you learning to not say anything. Maybe it's you saying, hey, I'm going to start saying positive phrases towards people, even if it feels uncomfortable. What's that one thing for you this week on choosing your words wisely? Because honestly, your words matter. They really do. And so I want you guys to be able to live your lives in such a way that you are able to be that wise person in the room. So let me go ahead. I'm going to pray for us. We're going to talk about this more. There's good content. There's good questions that we've got in the small groups. And so I'm going to pray for you guys, and then we're going to break out into those small groups. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for tonight, for this opportunity for us to go again through these different hot topics. I thank you for the last topics that we've gone through. And God, I just ask that tonight, if there's students in this room where they look at their lives and they said, I don't use my words very wisely, I ask that you give them action steps on how to be able to use their words wiser. If there's students in this room tonight that have said, you know, I don't feel like I really use my words unwisely, but I'm definitely not always building up people around me, I ask that you would give them steps on how they can be able to do that tonight. God, I just ask that each one of these students in this room would be able to go out of this place and be known for being kind, that they would be known for being like honey, for a deep water or a bubbling brook. And I pray this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.